The head of the Greater Hartford African American Alliance is demanding that the Hartford mayor make a change in leadership at HPD. The mayor firing back in a letter to the Greater Hartford African American Alliance, defending Chief Jason Thody's actions and also calling a number of other allegations inside that letter, quote, neither fair nor accurate.
There is no longer trust, legitimacy, confidence in the ability of the Hartford Police Department to police itself.
On the heels of Hartford's recent deadly gun violence, a march to make it stop, and weeks after this incident inside HPD lockup that led to the assault charge arrest of Sergeant James Guzzi, the president of the Greater Hartford African American Alliance sent this 3-page letter to Mayor Luke Bronin. It questions city leadership.
We are indeed calling for the termination of the Chief of Police, Jason Thody, and we believe that he is no longer fit to lead the department.
The same letter raising a number of other concerns, leading President McCauley to write that HPD, quote, lost credibility within the community with ongoing inappropriate behavior and within its ranks as officers continue to leave the department in droves. McCauley demands the immediate redress of Sergeant Guzzi's arrest.
He struck this woman. This is not the type of leadership we want in our police department. There's the Deadpool issue. There are many other issues.
The police chief deferring comment to the mayor since McCauley's letter was addressed to him. But Chief Thody did speak last week to Fox 61.
The use of force should have never happened, to that level.
Meanwhile, Mayor Bronin, through a spokesman, declined an on-camera interview with Fox 61. But in a letter back to the GHAAA said in part, quote, there can be good faith disagreements about decisions Chief Thody and the police department made. But his record clearly shows he's committed to building a department that is effective, accountable, and trustworthy. When officers fall short, he holds them accountable. And he's working to build and improve the culture within the department every day.
Thody has lost control. He has no control over his department.
Now, according to Hartford's police chief, Sergeant James Guzzi does remain on paid leave. He did not respond to us. Chief Thody also telling us that this investigation into that March 15th incident does remain under review. The physical assault, he says, on the intake officer, the spitting and language used could have been interpreted as a hate crime. Again, all of that is being looked at as part of the ongoing internal investigation. We are live outside City Hall in Hartford. Jill Kanopka, Fox 61 News. Back to you.
All right, Jill, thank you. We are following more breaking news here. A federal judge has ruled that